Kata ist professionelle Puppenspielerin, Regisseurin und Schauspielerin. Sie kommt aus Ungarn und du hast in Polen, in Białystok studiert. Und ich habe es wahrscheinlich falsch ausgesprochen, entschuldigt bitte. Du wirst uns jetzt etwas erzählen über die Theaterform, wie du im Augenblick arbeitest. Also deshalb haben wir dich auch an den Anfang genommen, weil du warst jetzt ein bisschen irritiert, dass du ganz gleich als Erste reden darfst. Wir wollten jetzt den heutigen ersten Teil den Praktikern widmen sozusagen. Also Kata wird heute starten und etwas über die Theaterform, mit die du arbeitest und wie du damit arbeitest, die Perspektive darstellen. Ist okay? Yes. We have this this board here, and there's the green is the next, and red is back. Please not turn the black one. The black one is horrible. Okay, the stage is for you. Sie hat ja. Achso.
Thank you. Thank you. And also thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Stefan, for your all help. And yes, I will speak a little bit about not my procedure or not my thinking of you, but a little bit my reflection of what I see and what I feel in today's theater, and about the meaning. Yes, about the meaning. What does the meaning of the performance mean in today's theater? It was my main subject title. The starting material of the performance has been changed a lot. Ever since I've been teaching since 2011, I always start my first class by asking my students why we go to the theater. I wonder what the role of the theater performance is and what is the most important in our upcoming performances. I would like to do such an experiment here as well. So, how you would describe it? What is the most important component of a theater performance? Be it tragedy or comedy, drama, dance or puppet show. Of course, I could also list different categories here, like we could talk about children theater or adult theater, indoor performances or outdoor performances, institutional theater performances or independent theater performances. In short, who would have an idea what is one, if not the most important element of the theater performance? No, it is a real question from my side. So, what do you think? Do you have any idea or just a suggestion? Just a word or even whole sentences? I mean, it is not an exam. It is, I really would like to know. I am no votes. Oh, sorry.
To my mind, it's presence. Presence is the most important thing. It's like the classical question that the funny figure asks at the beginning of puppet show. Are you all there? Yes.
Thank you. Someone else have something? Okay.
I think I must be touched.
Okay. Presence, be touched.
Theater is a safe space for experience.
Okay. So experience, presence, be touched.
Getting some new ideas or some new ways of thinking, new dimensions, inspirations.
A step into a magic world. I'm inside and at the same time I'm outside.
Thank you. Thank you. It is interesting. But we will talk a little bit different, but later on in the coffee break, I would like to talk these topics because it's really, really interesting. And I have to be really honest with you because when I was preparing for this symposium, I thought a lot about how I could give a useful presentation. What would be the topic with which I could convey the best way, I think, or the way I prepare for my performances, or in general, the way I am present here and now as an artist. In such cases, my right and left hampershies always start to argue. So that is my practical side or my theoretical side eventually prevails. So I end up talking about something useful or something uplifting that you can draw inspiration from. But I finally decided to try both this time at once. So now you will hear an experiment from me where I try to mix these two sides, practical and theoretical. So I'll try to give a useful and uplifting speech at the same time, because I think the most important part of the theater performance is a creator is the meaning of the performance and what we would like to talk about it. What does the word meaning means? According to Wikipedia, in semantics, semiotics, philosophy of language, metaphysics, and metasematics, meaning is a relationship between two sorts of things, signs, and the kind of things they intend, express, or signify. It is no different in the theater also. Unfortunately, I noticed as the spectator at more and more performances that one of the most essential parts of the performance is missing. It is the meaning. We can see effect-seeking, chaotic, often collage or patchwork performances from all aspects. So all kinds of things are mixed in one performance, from different puppet techniques to visible but non-functional actors, through the mixing of wood, metal, textile materials, not to mention the mixing of styles. But we rarely see performances that make us think, from which we take something home, and even a few days later, we remember a scene that makes us smile or bring tears to our eyes. The message itself does not have to be a complicated sentence, structure consisting of several clauses. In fact, the simpler, the better. I see the theater performance as an onion from which different layers can be peeled until we reach the middle, the quintessential, that is the focus point. In other words, that the performance has to say, that is the meaning of the performance, not black. How we can meaning, focus, and central theme of the performance help the creator. During the preparation of the performance, the most important question for the director, I am speaking of the preparatory period now, is it to answer the question of what is making theater about. In other words, before you start the rehearsal period, working with actors, you have to prepare with the co-creators everything. Since there are more people involved, in many cases from different cultures, different childhood experiences, and so on, it is inevitable that they have to find a common ground. The task of a director is bring the thoughts together and guide them into the one direction. I believe in the theater production where every creator, representative of every art form, must put his own profession, his own point of view into it. But I also believe that theater is a dictatorial genre, so in the end one person has to make the decision. Not to mention that we are employed artists who know our own profession very well, but we are serving. We serve the institution where the presentation is held or where the request comes from. We serve the needs of the audience. And last but not least, we have to serve our actors as well, even if they present them with the new challenges. Since their talent, ability, and potential move between certain limits. In other words, we have to pay attention to a lot of the things, so the more precisely we can articulate the content, focus point, and message of our presentation. The less chance there will be a slippage during the preparation period and then during the rehearsal process. If you manage to create a common dictionary with the co-creators and the management of the theater, there is a good chance that you will be able to get everyone's minds to think the same way, so the work can progress more easily and smoothly. If you manage to define the performance in a very simple sentence, or even better, perhaps in a word combination, then we have a winning case. I'll give you an example. It does matter whether we are doing a presentation about fulfilled love, platonic love, or disappointment in love with the topic of love. Or if we want to talk about death with our audience, what matters is whether we are interested in death as passing away, or death as a new beginning, or even as an end. What I see in the theater these days are mostly feelings, situations related to the given topic or similar. But I see less and less the underlying analysis, the questions that arise in a connection between the topic and the answer given to them. Is this change necessary, lawful, or inevitable? Everything changes. The theater too. But the community building power of the theater does not. This is precisely why it is so important how we phrase it. Everything is more and more worthless, easier and easier to reach, and more superficial. The socially critical power of the theater and its task to encourage the audience to think simply fills a gap, and that is precisely that we must make sure that it remains. But we, the creators of the profession, can exploit this or trivialize it as appropriate. The costumer society and our fast food world push up us from all sides in the direction of easy, more superficial solutions for entertainment and not for the transfer of ideas and questioning. The additional content, the parallel dramaturgical acts, the different levels of colors are now worn out of the theater. Of course, I know the most about Hungarian theater, so my analysis is mainly about the Eastern European theater culture, which is also complicated by the impossible political background. In a light dictatorship in which we live, it is not possible to talk about freedom of speech, and it is very difficult to make a non-political performances. But at the same time, everything that does not approach culture from the national side of the people is repressed, and this result is a one-side theatrical taste, which can turn to the country theater palette into quite shallow and uninteresting after a while. But back to the question. In what direction have the performance changed? One of my very interesting experience with this topic was the following in this spring. I was asked to be the curator of an independent application. More than 100 presentation ideas were received for this competition. only so much was mentioned in the call for proposals that it is indeed for the creation of a new presentation. Not only the CVs of all the creators were attached to the application, but also the synopsis. Reading through each presentation idea, I had to face the fact that the starting point of the presentation was 90% based on the lives of the creators. The starting point was not a literary work, a work of fine arts, not a philosophical thought, but the person's life, of their current life situation. And why is that? The theater is changing, and the creators, no less the audience, are much more concerned with the concrete human destiny today than references, like parallels taken from our predecessors or literary work. As a director, how do you get to the meaning? How can the problem of the presentation be defined? When defining the problem, we answer the question, what is our presentations about? After all, the simple play, fairy tale, short story can contain many different topics, and it is the director's task to determine which topic we want to deal with within the given material. For example, the fairy tale title Little Red Hood and the Wolf can talk about family, growing up, courage, and more in the form of performance. When the problem is raised, it becomes clear what our presentation will be about. There are directors who first find the topic, the issue, and only afterwards look for the suitable fairy tale story or short story. I would like to note here that both ways are correct for me. If we choose a specific piece for the theme, or we choose a specific theme within the piece, both is the cases, it is very important to define the origin, because later the personality, and the work of the co-creators, designer, composers, writer, dramaturge, must be assigned to this. And when the director gets stuck, this is the core point that can most often provide answer to the questions that arise. I have often been asked in interviews, what comes first? The form of the theme? I think that the problem must be defined first, and when we can assign a form, technique, and visuals to it. After all, in the case, for example, when I can determine it whether I choose a vertical subordinated or horizontal subordinated problem, then the technique is already given. I can imagine a masked game for a vertical subordinated topic. The puppeteer and the masked body move on the same plane. For a horizontal subordinated theme, the marionette, puppeteer above, puppet below. Or, for example, in the glove game or wayang, puppet below, puppeteer below, and puppet above. There are directors who start from the form and then supplement it with something to say. This is also a possible way. Moreover, it may happen that the director finds a solution to both the problem and the form at the same time. In the event that our starting point is the problem, issue, question, we have to narrow it down until we can determine the point of view through which we can talk the presence of the performance. What does the director's point of view mean? It is not enough that we have found the right piece and the origin of the piece. We also need to determine from which point of view and from which direction we will present that material in our presentation. After all, it doesn't matter in what environment we place our raw material, from which side we approach our chosen problem, to what age, to what social class, with what puppetry technique we want to put in on the stage, etc. Determining the director's point of view helps the director to be able to remove everything else from the original work apart from the defined basic problems, and so it helps to determine in what style he wants to present the work and the problems within it. After all, it does not matter that if we start from the, for example, of the specific fairy tale, Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf, when we want to present the problem of growing up in connection with its staging, we want to interpret the problem in general terms, I mean the presentation of the good and the bad sides of growing up, for example, responsibility, rights and obligation, and so on. Or maybe we want to show it in a more subjective way. Determining the points of view help us to determine the how. How what our presentation is about is presented. There can be two ways of defining the problematic and the perspective, and both ways are valid and real. There are times when the presence is about comes first in the direction the director mind, and during the clarification he gets to the how. And I have already met a director who first feels the how. He determines the first and then founds the why for himself. In other words, in general, we can say that every performance wants to convey something. So it is inevitable that the performances have a meaning, because this is how we can start or maintain this culture communication and convey ideas. The meaning, the thinking theater is all the more necessary for communication through the theater, because through this we can build a strong thinking, demanding audience base. In today's age, this plays a particularly important role when the theater is disappearing so much, thanks to the economic crisis, not to mention the various political contexts. Therefore, I just want to encourage everyone to convey precisely formulated meaning with their presentations. Also that for all of us, quality theater, and through quality theater, the enlightened thinker view should be the direction. Thank you for listening.
You. Wir haben, das habe ich vorhin vergessen zu sagen, wir haben es ja in den letzten Konferenzen immer so gehandhabt, dass wir nach dem Vortrag noch inhaltliche Fragen beantworten konnten. Kata, kannst du noch kurz hier bleiben? Sorry, can you stay a little bit? Perhaps there are... Okay, we have... also... We have in our last symposium, we have always questions allowed to you. Sorry, ja. Wir haben das immer so gehandhabt, wenn jetzt Fragen von euch da sind, direkt zum Vortrag. Yeah, it's only what I say. Okay. Gibt es Fragen von euch? Dann
Thank you, Kata. I'm Frans Hakemars from the Netherlands, puppeteer also. I was very pleased with your what you say, but I was also a little bit shocked because I have been teacher, social studies, for 10 years, and later on I was full-time puppeteer. And I thought there was a much difference between being a teacher and being a puppeteer. And the way you talk now, I'm questioning myself. Am I still a teacher? Bringing over values to the audience when we share a puppet story? So what is the difference between a teacher and performing and the director's influence on that?
Franz, I have a better news for you. You are not a teacher, you are not a puppeteer, you are a human. And like this, it is everything what you are doing, it is just the question in which way you are doing the same things. I am not talking about that when we are doing theater, we are teaching in the way as in the school, of course, because it's completely different. But the main point what we would like to achieve, it is that our thoughts can be placed on other person's mind, even if they are not agreeing with us. It is the most interesting moment when I would like to share something, I would like to give you something, and you have a completely different idea, meanings about it. So then we can start to talk. I don't think it is a question about am I this or that, or am I good enough in this, or am I better on that. It is the question is how you can find this kind of communication channel and how we are building this communication channel. That is it.
Thank you. Erstmal hat sie sich André gemeldet. Kannst du, Jan? Danke, dann können wir hin und her.
I'm Alexei Wansel from here. Some of you know me. I perform sometimes, I direct too. You called theater a very dictatorial kind of art. So when I direct, I try not to be dictatorial. Do I do something wrong? And how important is the idea of the director from the performance? Because I know the independence in cinema when the actor actually decides, or the actors decide what they want to say, and they look for a director who would agree to be controlled, so to say. How do you say that? How do you see that?
It is depending, of course, about the culture, about the nation, even about the group. Because sometimes you find a group when they really would like to be leaded, and there are some groups who are so open that, and they have a lot of what they wanted to talk. They just really need someone who guide them. But a dictatorial hierarchy, I don't mean that you have to be a dictator. It is the worst what you can do in the theater. But sometimes when you have to say that, okay, I would like to see this light, you have to stay on your feet and say, no, I don't want to see proposition, I would like to see that light. And everyone behind you have to understand that you would like to see that light. It doesn't mean you are a dictator. The way how you can communicate with people and how you can manage, and it is very strange because normally you are spending in our profession, or in my experience, maximum 1 month. You don't have time to, to go to the pub or to have friends, but you have to concentrate on the work, and you would like to fulfill it. So you really have to find a way how you can manage it. And if there is I have to say that for me it is much more easier, but it is of course my habit, that I directed in several countries in my life, and my easiest was in Poland and in Siberia, because the tradition and the way how the people knows their place, you don't have to fight. It is so complicating when you are standing there as a director with a complete ideas, and they said, but why? Why I have to do this? I would like to do something else. And you are staying there and, okay, of course you would like to, okay, let's try. It's not working. Would you be so kind and try my ideas? No. Why? Please tell me. What does it mean? And what does it mean? And what does it mean? And you're standing there and you feel that you are losing time, you are losing energy, and it is so complicating. Of course, you can start with some kind of workshops when you can work with this kind of common work, or how you can work together. But I have to say that, it is depending of the needs. That group, the theater, because sometimes it's also different what the board would like to have from you and what the group would like to have from you. And it's depending on your habit, because there are some directors who are going there and they said that, no, I have one way. If you like it, you don't like it, this is the way how I am working. And there are directors who are, okay, I can try this, I can try that, I can try that. So it is different component. I would say.
I have not a anmachen? Nee, here. I have not a question. I wanted to enlarge on what you said. I think in the theater we do not only share the thinking, we share the emotions and the images, and that makes it larger. For thinking, I can read the newspaper or something else.
Of course, this is why I was saying that it is an experiment from me, because I didn't want it to make a lecture. There are a lot of different things what is connected. But without thinking, I mean, of course you can put only motion on the stage. This is what I meant when I tried to mention in the beginning that there are some patchworks work. It is also working, it is wonderful, it is really emotional touched by the audience. But I think all the time, it is my opinion and it is completely subjective, that still missing something. I can flow. I can sit there and I can watch beautiful scenes, beautiful lights, music, gestures, movements, but I'm still missing the thinking. And there are some examples, of course, when it is combined. So not just only beautiful, but there is some meanings. And after a few days, I can thinking, yeah, and maybe they were right. No, I haven't. Oh, but in this gesture, it means that and that. Oh, so I like the theater when I can really get something and I can take it with myself. That's it.
Danke, thank you.
Yeah.